Okay, fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on Sifted.net. I hope you are a Patreon patron. If so, thank you for your patronage. We really need the support. Contributions are way down, so if you can find an extra $5 here or there to up your contribution, really appreciate it. If you're a subscriber on the YouTube channel, thank you. You're getting this real time as well. If you are a Prime member, and whether you're a subscriber or not, if you're a Prime member and have a Twitch account, link those two together. We have instructions in the show description below, and we get paid a couple bucks a month, so that will help out a lot. Please remember to do that. And if you haven't renewed it in a while, please go down and follow the instructions. It takes a second. It's a one click, and we'll keep getting paid. And if you're doing none of those things, follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. Our next question from Sifted from Jay Lynn. Now that E3 has been completely canceled this year, man, that makes me so sad. Do you see it ever coming back? If Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest does well, could publishers lose interest in working with the ESA altogether next year? Could you ever see Keighley organizing a large in-person convention so he would have control of both portions of what used to be E3? Okay. Jeff Keighley is my friend. I love Jeff Keighley. I want Jeff Keighley to dominate the planet. I love the guy. I want him to be as successful as humanly possible. I don't know what happened with Jeff and the ESA. Jeff used to be kind of their preferred host, and something happened, and he's too classy a guy to say anything bad about them, and I've never asked the ESA about it, but I think they need to be together. So I think your question is asked the right way. There are now two competing events. There's Summer Games Fest and there's ESA. And there isn't room for two events the same week, and we can't have two events the same week. So ESA needs to buy Summer Games Fest, and Jeff will sell it. No, Jeff would sell it. If they said to Jeff, $10 million and we'll give you $1 million a year to run it, he'd do it. I don't care what the number is. The ESA needs to make an accommodation. They need to pay Jeff a percentage of whatever they generate, and he'll take it and combine the shows. The ESA is the publishers, so it's the trade group that is that is composed of all the video game publishers. They support it. They own it. It is them. So it's sort of like saying, would the NFL teams do something different and oppose the NFL in a Super Bowl, that on Super Bowl week? The NFL teams own the NFL, so they would never compete with the NFL. So the publishers honestly can't compete with the ESA. But the ESA doesn't independently make the decision. It isn't like Stan, Pierre-Louis, who is the president of the ESA, makes the decision, we're having E3 and you guys are all going to support me. His board makes the decision. His board is the publishers. So if there's an E3 next year, and I think there will be, we're going to have a unified publisher group, which could spell disaster for Summer Games Fest, because it's going to be hard for people to put stuff there and not at ESA, not at E3. That's why I think they need to be together, because I think Jeff Keighley is really good for the industry. I think the guy, he's energetic, he's young from my perspective. He's actually over 40 now, I'm not crazy, but he's young from my perspective. He's got a good vibe. He's in touch with the Utes, with the market, and developers and publishers love the guy, as do I. So I will do anything I can to help him succeed, but I really think the ESA should work with him and make it work for everybody. Now, my view is E3 is essential for the industry. I think that the industry really screwed up letting Microsoft move to the Microsoft Theater, which I get is their prerogative, but kind of they're there during E3 and they host events at E3, but it's in their own arena. Letting EA pull out and move to a different venue, they moved to Hollywood, which I think is just stupid of them, and I hope they get religion and get back. And letting Sony walk. I mean, Sony should be vilified for that. I don't care what Sony thinks about whether the money is better spent for Sony in their own independent events. It's not good for the industry. E3 doesn't sell consoles. E3 gets Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Sheldon Whitehouse, and Bernie Sanders off of Bobby Kodak's back. We lose that. The industry loses that. That's important. Really important. I remember introducing when Paul Raines, who died, became CEO of GameStop, and he had been like whatever COO. I introduced him to Don Matrick. It won't be the same show if the publishers don't support it. Showing games at Game Fest versus renting out big chunks of the convention center, hosting big media events, and doing things with politicians, that's what the trade group is responsible for doing. Keighley's not big enough to pull that off. The ESA is big enough to pull that off. He can do a scaled down version that's really good to showcase games, but you need all the press here because all the people are here. You need an international event. I complimented Jim Ryan in an earlier episode saying he's financially astute and that's his biggest strength. It is also his biggest weakness. There are things you spend money on in spite of the fact that they won't give you a dollar return, but they'll give you recognition. They'll give you branding. I'll give you an example in my real life. I had a sell rating on Netflix for 10 years. And my firm was criticized by a lot of our brokers were mad about it. I had the CEO of our firm, who's since died, tell me to stay off TV and don't talk about Netflix. And I was off for a few months, and I went and saw him, and I said, don't you think it's good that I'm just on TV and people see Pachter and Wedbush, and that I speak well and I'm thoughtful, and what I'm saying isn't idiotic or crazy? And he goes, well, I do like that. And I said, okay, so how much business have we lost because I have a sell rating on Netflix? One stock that people aren't buying through us, big deal. And how much business we gained because people go, oh, Wedbush must be influential. They're on TV all the time. That's what E3 is. So it doesn't matter if you sell PlayStations. What matters is Bernie Sanders knows you're a big employer. Bernie Sanders knows that your product doesn't cause kids to go out and shoot up, shopping malls or parties or schools. Like, that's the problem. They need to convince not just legislators, they need to convince the public that games are good. And they need to convince the public that games are mainstream. And while I think Jeff Keighley is awesome at that, he's not as effective as the ESA. Again, back to my E3 party, 2 years in a row, I hosted 30 congressional aides. So people who worked for congressmen and senators, 30 of them were part of some committee. I forgot, whatever the committee is that regulates video games, came to E3, and the ESA asked me if they could come to my party. And I sat with them for 45 minutes before the party, kind of told them how the industry worked, and they were all young, they were all in their 20s, like congressional aides would be. And each year was completely different people. And we made 60 friends. Not Wedbush, the industry. Jeff can't do that. And Jeff wouldn't do that. I mean, it's like not part of what his DNA. It's part of the ESA's DNA. That's worth a lot. And Sony is stupid for not being there. Just blind to the benefits of that kind of publicity. They'll sell lots of PlayStations until Game Pass eats their lunch, and then they won't sell anymore. They got to be at ESA. It's not sales of PlayStations. It's making sure there's no regulation against PlayStation. Lots of reasons to do it. Freeloaders in every industry are carried by the guys who pay more than their fair share. Every industry has guys who are more into it than other guys. And, it's important that, like, where would Elon Musk be without tax credits for electric vehicles, right? But, he professes to be anti-tax and all that, but man, he takes those tax credits, doesn't he? So, he's not exactly a politically astute guy, but you can't survive without the government favoring your industry or not harming your industry. So, look, the video game business, unfortunately, you just have a lot of nutcases out there who think video games cause cancer. They think video games, it's an unproductive way to spend your time. You shouldn't be playing. You should be studying. You should be outside getting fresh air. Remember that with your mom? So we've got to convince people, no, games are mainstream. There's a career. We've got to showcase guys like Ninja, or Pokimane, and say, you can have a career as a Twitch caster. You don't even have to be that good playing games. Just have a Twitch casting career and be entertaining. It was PewDiePie for a while. I mean, and there'll be 1,000 more after that. And I can't tell you, Corsair makes podcasting equipment, hardware. They are selling millions of podcasting cameras and microphones to people who are Pokimane wannabes, and that's healthy. Because you're going to get an Olivia Rodrigo coming out of TikTok or whatever. You're going to get a Twitch caster who actually becomes a mainstream star. What's your name? Your old girlfriend, Olivia Munn. I mean,
my old girlfriend.
Yeah, she's like G4 TV though. She's like a gamer girl.
Yeah.
And now, not that she's
Debatable.
but not that she's a big star, but she's a bona fide Hollywood celebrity, and she turned it into something. This industry is really good for a lot of people, and I think that participants in the industry have to support it. And so, Jeff Keighley does do that. So I'm saying, like, Jeff Keighley's not at cross purposes of the SA. We should do both, either stagger them or do them together. I think a together big event is better. I think they should change E3 to the ESA or to the E3 Summer Game Fest. Fine. Pay Jeff for the copyrights to that and frickin' have giant unveil events that Jeff moderates. I don't need Jack Tretton or Sean Layden or Jim Ryan on stage to show me The Last of Us Part 2. Jeff Keighley on stage doing that is great. That'll work for me. And then what's his name? Evan Wells. And I forgot and Evan and Neil getting up and talking about that would be awesome. We don't need Jim Ryan to get up and introduce them. Jeff Keighley can introduce them. Jeff Keighley is to video games what Ryan Seacrest is to American Idol. He's that guy. So, anyway, I'm hopeful that E3 is coming back next year. I have to have a party. And if it's not at E3, it'll be at Summer Game Fest. Thanks for joining us on Sifted.net as a Patreon patron. And if you are paying monthly, thank you. Keep it up if you can. You can squeeze an extra $1 or $2 into the account. Like I said, Shane is just dying here, so we need all the help we can get. If you are a YouTube subscriber, thank you so much. Please remember to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. And that's automatic. Just follow the instructions in the show description below. Otherwise, follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter, and I will see you next time.